The chandelier light in the private dining room of the exclusive rooftop restaurant felt sharper than usual. Crystal threw fractured diamonds across the long table, catching on silverware and the dark wood of the walls. Ethan sat at the head, flags were tailored so precisely it looked poured onto him. Silver chain resting against the open collar of his shirt. His expression was the only he wore in ballrooms, calm, slightly distant, the quiet authority of a man who had built an empire young and never needed to raise his voice to be obeyed. He stood a half step behind his chair, hands clasped tightly in front of the simple pink blouse and skirt you had chosen that morning. It was the nicest thing you owned, that still looked like something a personal assistant might wear. You had hauled yourself it was fine, practical and unassuming, exactly that someone like you was supposed to look like next to someone like him. The partners had arrived in waves of expensive colon and easy laughter. Mr. Kang from the Seoul investment firm Direction and his wife, two younger executives from the Busan branch who kept glancing at Hisung with the careful respect of man who knew exactly how much power sat at the head of the table. Conversation followed around expansion plans, quarterly projects, the line that would launch in the fall. Hisung answered and needed voice slow and steady, occasionally glancing at the notes on his phone. He stood ready with the tablet, the water pitcher, the quiet presence he usually preferred when he brought you to these things. You had never been introduced as anything formal. In the rare moments he had to acknowledge you in public, it was always my assistant or simply your name because you wanted it this way. Tonight felt different. The air was heavier, the stakes higher, and somehow in the middle of the second course, Mr. Kang's eyes settled on you with polite curiosity. And this is, he asked, gesturing lightly into your direction. Every face turned. The silence stretched on way too long. Heat trimmed the back of your neck. You felt the weight of their gazes, expenses, watches, perfect hair, the kind of quiet confidence that comes from never having to prove you belonged. You looked at Hising's profile, the sharp line of his jaw, the way the light caught the silver chain. You thought of the mornings you woke up in the bed, the nights he pulled you into his lap and called you, his inner voice that made the rest of the world disappear. You thought of the clothes in your shared closet that still felt like they belonged more to him than to you. The way strangers sometimes looked between the two of you, and you should almost hear the question forming, how did she end up with him? Shame rose fast and thick. You did not fit the picture. Not the way these people expected. Not the way the world expected of a man. Likely his son, and the word his mother, that forced on you earlier that evening, still burned in your throat. Heeson had been downstairs finishing a call with Mrs. Lee, arrived unannounced at the apartment, her presence filling the hallway like cold perfume. She had found you in the bedroom, standing in front of the mirror in the blouse and skirt you had chosen, had already stressing about the dinner. She had closed the door quietly behind her, eyes sweeping over you with the same assessing look she used to on the staff at the family estate. You will not introduce yourself as his girlfriend tonight, she had said, voice low and absolute, not in front of those men. Do you understand me? You had frozen, head still smoothing the fabric at your waist. I, you were a maid in our house before he decided to play house with you. She continued, as if reciting facts from a ledger. Everyone who matters still remembers. If you walked into that room claiming to be his equal, you will embrace him. You will embrace this family. You will say, you are the household help if anyone asks. Keep it simple, keep it small. He's not here to correct you, so you will do as I say. You had opened your mouth to refuse. The protest died under the weight of her stare, the same stare that had once watched you polish silver and change lines in the east wing, while Hisung was only the distant eldest son who rarely came home. She had left before he returned. Upstairs, the threat hanging in the air like a closed door, you had stood there shaking, the old uniform of the state will bursting over your skin. And by the time Hisung's voice called for you from the living room, the words were already long behind your teeth. So you smiled the small, careful smile you used when you needed to disappear, and you said the words before you could stop them. I am his mate. The silence that followed was absolute. Hisung's hand, which had been resting loosely around his water glass, went still. You saw the tiny shift in his shoulders, the way his finger tightened once before going completely emotionless. He did not look at you, not yet. His gaze stayed on Mr. Yang, polite and unreadable. Then he spoke, voice quiet, but cutting cleanly through the air. No one word, intimate, absolute. He set the glass down with deliberate care and finally turned his head just enough that his eyes found yours. There was no softness in them, only a sharp, cold clarity that made your stomach drop. She's not my maid, he said, still looking at you while he addressed the table. She's my partner, she lives with me. She's the reason I leave the office before midnight most nights. She's the person whose opinion I ask when I am about to sign something that will affect the next few years of this company. You will address her with the same respect you give me. Mr. Kang's eyebrows rose. Director Hand cleared his throat softly. One of the younger executives looked down at his plate, as if the steak had suddenly become fascinating. The air in the room had changed temperature. Eason's voice remained even, almost mild, but every person at the table heard. They stayed under it. Her name is fine. She will be ignoring us for the rest of the meal. Not standing, sitting. He gestured to the empty chair beside him that had been waiting the entire time. Sit. Your legs felt unsteady. You moved around the table under the weight of every stare and took the seat. Ethan did not touch you. He did not look at you again for the remainder of the dinner. He simply continued the conversation as if nothing had happened, discussing logistics, timelines, marketing strategy for the new collection, while the partner adjusted, smiling a little too carefully, asking you polite questions about the weather and how long you had lived in Seoul. You answered in short, careful sentences, your pulse hammered in your ears. The food tasted like nothing. Every time someone laughed too loudly or glanced between the two of you, The shame curl tightened in your chest. Heesun had corrected it instantly. He had claimed you in front of all of them without hesitation, and somehow that made the original lie feel even worse because it had been only your fear speaking. It had been his mother's voice, still echoing from the bedroom, reminding you of the years you had spent in uniform on the state floors while he was the unreachable heir. The dinner lasted another hour and a half. He handled the rest of the discussion with the same quiet efficiency he always used. When the cake was settled and the partners began gathering their cost, he stood, shook hands, exchanged the final polite words. You stayed half a step behind him the entire time, silent. In the elevator down the private parking level, the two of you were alone. The mirrored walls reflected your pale face and his unreadable profile. He did not speak. The silence died until the doors opened onto the quiet underground garage. His car waited under the soft overhead lights. He opened the passenger door for you without a word. You slid in, he closed it carefully, walked around and got behind the wheel. The engine came to life when a low hum. He pulled out into the late night streets of Seoul, the city lights sliding across the windshield in long streaks of gold and white. 15 minutes passed in complete silence. 20. You stared at your hands in your lap, finger twisted together so tightly the knuckles had gone white. The shame had settled into something heavier regret, dread, the growing certainty that you had crossed a line you could not easily step back from, and underneath it, you knowledge that his mother had engineered the moment while he was downstairs unaware. He sunk drove with the same controlled precision. He did everything else. One hand on the wheel, the other resting on the gear shift. His jaw was set. The muscle there jumped once, twice. When the car finally turned into the underground parking of his building, your building, he parked in his usual spot and shut off the engine. The sudden quiet felt loud. Did not move to get out. Look at me. You forced your head up. His eyes were fixed in the dim light of the garage, fixed on you with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. Do you have any idea? He said, voice low and tightly controlled. What it does to me when you reduce yourself like that in front of people who already look for reasons to dismiss you. You opened your mouth, nothing came out. I corrected it immediately because it was a lie, because it was an insult to you and to me, because those men needed to understand exactly where you stand in my life before they left that room. But that does not mean I am not angry. He unbuckled his seatbelt with a sharp click and he turned fully toward you. The space inside the car suddenly felt too small. You stood there and called yourself my maid, as if the only reason you belong next to me is because you clean my floors and fold my shirts, and if everything we are something you should be ashamed of. Your voice cracked. I saw the way they look at me. I didn't want them to think I was trying to be something I'm not. I don't fit the picture he said. I never have. I thought if I just made it smaller, it would be easier. The truth pressed harder against your lips. You swallowed. Your mother was at the apartment while you were on the call. You sat quietly. She found me getting ready. She told me I had to say it, that I was a maid in this state before us. That if I understood Myself, as your girlfriend, it would embarrass me in front of those men. She said you were not there to stop her, so I would do as she said. Heesung went completely still. For a moment, the only sound was the tick tick of the cooling engine. He would. It was not a question. The words came out flat, dangerous. You forced yourself to keep going. She said everyone who matters still remembers that I would keep it simple, keep it small. I didn't know how to refuse it. Not after everything. Not when she looked at me like I was still wearing uniform. His hand tightened on his thighs. The muscle in his jaw worked once, twice. When he spoke again, his voice was slower, colder. She came into your home while I was downstairs and ordered you to raise yourself in front of my business partners. You nodded, eyes stinging. Easier for who? He asked the earlier sharpness turning but now aimed somewhere belonging. For them, for her, or for you. You flinched, he noticed. His expression turned further, but he did not soften. Get out of the car. You obeyed. The walk of the elevator was silent again. Inside the elevator, he stood with his hands in his pockets, staring straight ahead at the mirrored doors. You watched the reflection, the hard line of his mouth, the way his shoulders stayed rigid. When the doors opened on your floor, he waited for you to step out first, then swallowed. The apartment was dark except for the soft glow of the city coming through the floor to ceiling windows. He closed the door behind you with a quiet finality and locked it. Then he returned. Come here. You walked to him. He did not touch you yet. He simply looked at you for a long moment, eyes moving over your face, as if searching for something. You are not my maid, he asked, quieter now, but not less intense. You are the woman I come home to, the woman I want in my bed every night, the woman whose name I had already imagined, writing on papers that would make the apartment. That he stood in a room full of people who mattered to his company and told them to clean my house because my mother decided you should still be ashamed of standing beside me. Tears stung in backs of your eyes. You blinked hard, but one slipped free anyway. His hand finally rose. He brushed the tear away with his thumb. The touch almost gentle, but his voice stayed hard. I am angry, Wine. I am angry that she still believes she has the right to walk into your home and rewrite who you are. I am angry that you still look at yourself through her eyes and theirs instead of mine. I am angry that after every night I've spent proving to you that you belong here, you still choose the smaller version of yourself. The moment someone from the old world decided to speak. I am sorry, she whispered. I panicked, I didn't know what else to say. I felt small. And she made sure I remembered exactly how small I used to be. You are not small. He stepped closer until there was almost no space left between them. You are the person who makes this place feel like home instead of just another expensive apartment. You are the one I trust with things I do not trust anyone else with. And if she or anyone ever tries to force you to introduce yourself that way again, you will look at me. You will let me handle it. You do not get to decide alone that you are not enough. And neither does he. His hand came up to frame your face, thumbs resting against your cheekbone. The anger was still there, simmering under the surface, but something else moved beneath it to protectiveness. Frustration of his kind of love that refused to let you make yourself less. You do not to get decide you are not good enough for me, he said. This is not your call, it is mine, and I already made it, long before she decided to remind you of the state floors. You leaned into his hands, eyes closing for a second as the weight of the evening finally cracked something open in your chest. I looked at you sometimes and I still can't believe this is real. That someone like you choose, someone like me, the girl who used to clean the guest rooms, while you were the son who rarely came home, and tonight, with all of them staring at her, words still in my head, it felt like the universe was going to notice the mismatch and I take it. He sank his head slowly through his nose. Some of the tension in his shoulder eased, but the intensity in his eyes did not. Then let me make it clear. He leaned down and kissed you, not soft, not careful. It was the kind of kiss that claimed and corrected at the same time. Deep and deliberate, and one hand sliding in your hair to hold you in place, with the other settled at the small of your back and pulled you flush against him. You made a small sound against his mouth. He answered it by deepening the kiss further, walking you backward until your shoulders met the wall beside the door. When he finally pulled back, both of you were breathing harder. His forehead rested against yours. You are not my maid, he repeated, voice rough. You never will be again. You are mine and I am yours. The next time someone asks you, my mother included, you tell them the truth, or you let me tell them. But you do not get to erase yourself to make other people more comfortable, especially not her. You nodded, throat tight, okay, say it, I am not your maid, and I am your partner, your girlfriend. I belong with you. Something in his expression finally loosened. He kissed you again, slower this time, the edge of anger adding into something hotter and more possessive. His hand moved to the buttons of your blouse, undoing them one by one without breaking the kiss. When the fabric parted, he pushed it for your shoulders, letting it fall to the floor. His mouth trailed down the side of your neck, teeth grazing slightly over the spot that always made your breath catch. I hated hearing those words come out of your mouth, he murmured, against your skin. I hated that she put them there, and I hated that for 1 second, just one, you looked like you believed them. You tipped your head back against the wall, finger curling into the front of his shirt. I am sorry. I know he lifted his head to look at you again. But you are going to prove it to me tonight, not with more apologies, with the way you let me touch you, with the way you stop trying to make yourself smaller, with the way you remember that the girl more instead is the same woman I choose and keep choosing. He guided you toward the bedroom without another word. The city lights painting silver patterns across the floor. As he walked inside, he turned on the low lamp on the nightstand instead of the overhead light. casting the room in warm gold. He stripped out of his jacket and shirt with affectionate movements, the silver chain catching the light against his collarbone. Then he reached for your head. He took his time, eyes never leaving yours, as if he were rewriting the entire evening, and every old uniform you didn't wear anymore was going undone, with every piece that hit the floor. When you stood in front of him completely, his, he simply looked for a long moment, one hand tracing the light of your waist, the every curve of you. Beautiful, he said, almost under his breath, and mine. Do not forget it again. Not for her, not for anyone. He guided you onto the bed and followed, settling over you with the solid weight of his body. The first kiss of skin made you both inhale. He kissed you deeply with his hand, mapped every inch of you, slow and thorough, as if he needed to redeem the shape of you after the way you had tried to hide it earlier. When his mouth moved lower across your collarbone, he took this time. Every touch like a correction, every kiss felt like a claim that reached past the dinner table and past the straight halls. When he finally pushed into you, it was with a low sound in his throat, forehead pressed to yours, eyes locked on yours in the dim light. You feel that he asked, voice rough as he began to move. That is real, not some role you play for other people's comfort, not the version of you she tried to force back into uniform. You nodded breathless. He had a steady, deliberate rhythm, one hand braced beside your head, the other sliding under your thigh to change the angle until you were gasping his name. The anger had transformed into something fierce and focused, every more a reminder, every low murmur against your ear, a refusal to let you disappear. You are not ashamed of this, he said, rolling deeper. You are not ashamed of us. Say it. I am not, you managed, voice breaking on a mouth. I am not ashamed. Good, he kissed you hard, planning the next sound you made. You guys will never be ashamed of you, and I will never let you or her be ashamed of the fact that I choose you. When you came, it was with his name on your lips and his eyes locked on yours, the pleasure sharp and overwhelming. He followed a moment later, burying his face in your neck, as his body tensed and then slowly relaxed against yours. For a long time, neither of you moved. He stayed inside you, weight carefully placed, so he did not crush you, and heart stalking slowly through your hair. Your heartbeat gradually slowed against his. Eventually he shifted, pulling out carefully and rolling onto his side, drawing you with him so you were tugged against his chest. His finger traced idle patterns along your spine. Next time he sighed quietly into the dark. If she tries again, if the room starts to feel too big and you start wanting to make yourself smaller, you look at me. You let it be handled. You do not get it decide alone that you are not enough, and you does she. You press a soft kiss to the center of his chest. Okay, he taped your chin up, so he could see your face. The anger was gone now, replaced by something softer, but no, less serious. I mean it, Ryan. You are not a temporary thing in my life. You are not someone I hide or diminish for the comfort of business partners or my mother's pride. You are the person I want beside me when those rooms get quiet and the real conversations start. And if I have to correct the entire table and every single time until you believe it, I will. He nodded, eyes shifting again for a completely different reason. I believe you. He kissed your forehead, then your temple, then the corner of your mouth. Good, because I am not letting you go. Not for them, not for her, not for anyone. The city lights continued to shift across the ceiling as the night deepened. Eventually, the tension of the evening drained away completely, leaving only the quiet warmth of his body against yours and the steady beat of his heart under your ear. He kept you close, one arm locked around your waist, as if even in sleep he refused to let the distance return. In the morning he would still be there, and the next time someone asked who you were, whether it was a business partner or the woman who once watched you polish silver in the street, you will not need to search for a smaller answer. You would not look at him, and he would look back, and the truth would be the only thing left to say. You were not his maid. You had been once, but you were his girlfriend now. You were his, and he had made certain the entire room, and you would never forget it.